Okay, this next video explains how do you know which rules to follow. If you're taking a test or the final exam, most likely it's not going to tell you that this is a covalent or an ionic compound. You're going to have to decide. So down here at the bottom I have a mixture of compounds to name and a mixture of compounds to write the formulas for. So my first suggestion to you is that you ask yourself if the compound is ionic or covalent. The hint that we kept using in class was that if there's a metal present, then it's an ionic compound, because you should know that ionic compounds are made up of almost always a metal and a nonmetal, but definitely a cation and an anion. And cations are metals. So if there is a metal present, you must go by the ionic rules. And number 2 says if it's ionic, you use no prefixes. You just do this like we have named everything else. You name the cation and you name the anion. If it's covalent, if there's no metal present, then you have to use the prefixes. So here's the first one. It's KNO3. K is a metal. If you're not sure, then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take a periodic table and you're going to have to find K. K is over here. It's to the left of the stair step, which means that it's a metal. That's what you need to do for every single one of them if you don't know. So no prefixes, I just name it. Potassium is one of the first 2 columns. That means it doesn't get a Roman numeral. And since it has more than 2 elements in this, I know that one of them is a polyatomic ion. Don't forget that you have your polyatomic ion table. So you can find NO3 and you'll see that it's called nitrate. So you just copy that down and you're done. This next one, my first element is P, it's phosphorus. It's to the right of the stair step on the periodic table. It's right here. That means it's a nonmetal. So I'm going to use prefixes in this. I don't have a metal present. So there's 2 of the first one. So I put the prefix di, and it's phosphorus, diphosphorus. And then there's 5 oxygens, so that's pentoxide. Diphosphorus pentoxide. This next one, first element is Fe, that's iron. Well, if you use your periodic table, iron is a metal. And it happens to be one of the elements that is not one of the first 2 columns, and it's not one of the 4 I've asked you to know. That means it gets a Roman numeral. It's going to be iron something. Cl is chlorine. We change that to chloride. Remember, if I do a little work over here, I've suggested that you draw it out. I know that there's 3 chlorines and 1 iron. I do know the charge of a chlorine. It's -1. If there's 1 iron that can make this add up to equal 0, then it has to be an iron with a +3 charge, so it's iron 3 chloride. Sulfur, it's to the right of the stair step, so it's not going to be one like this. It's going to use the prefixes. There's 1. I don't write monosulfur, I just write sulfur, and then there's 6 hexafluoride. When I go the other way, it's a little bit easier because I've already got prefixes or not in my words. Calcium phosphide has no prefixes, so therefore it's just going to be calcium and phosphorus. And it's like we've done before. Calcium is a +2, phosphorus is a -3. I've suggested that you go back and forth till you make it add up to 0. Some of you are crisscrossing the charges. That's +4 -3. That's -6. That makes it +6. So my final answer here is Ca3P2. If you get that faster by crisscrossing, then please do so. Carbon tetrachloride. As soon as I see the tetra, I don't need to do any kind of work. I just go to interpreting. Carbon is C. There's nothing with it, so it's just one of them. Tetra means 4, so there's 4 chlorines, carbon tetrachloride. Silver nitride. I don't see any prefixes, and silver is a metal, so it's going to be kind of like this up here. Silver I know is Ag, and it's one I told you had to memorize, that its charge was +1. Nitrogen is a -3. It's going to take 3 of the 1 pluses to make the -3 add up to 0. That comes out to be Ag3N. And here's my one from before. Dinitrogen, tetroxide, I see prefixes, no real work required, just interpret it. Dinitrogen means two nitrogens, tetroxide means tetra and oxygen, N2O4. Follow those rules and you use your periodic table and you should be just fine.